Hello friends, and welcome to the channel where the biblical backgrounds matter. If any of these videos are any help to you, subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up to each video. That way the videos will get pushed out to more people and they'll help more people. And also share them to your social media account. We're going to pick up in Genesis chapter 8 today. We have the events after the flood. Genesis chapter 8, starting out in verse 1. Then God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the animals that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. God caused the flood to destroy the earth, to wipe out the sins of the many, and then he put an end to the flood. Verse 2, the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven were also stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters receded continually from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the waters decreased. Then the ark rested in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. To get the background of this story, you have to go back to previous chapters for some context. So you want to study the chapters preceding this before you dive into this chapter. Now, as a side note, there are different contexts. There's descriptive context and there's prescriptive context. Prescriptive tells you what the standards are for you as a Christian. The descriptive context is historical and prophetic. Descriptive context either describes what happened during that time period or what will happen in future events. Let's keep on going. Verse 6. So it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent out a raven which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. He also sent out from himself a dove to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot. She returned into the ark to him, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her, and drew her into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. God does things on his time, not on our time. He's on a separate time schedule from us. And once again, getting back to different context, there's the promises of God, there are prophecies, there's poetry, which you'll see in Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon. There's Proverbs, and there's Psalms. And then there's prose narratives. Prose narratives gets back into historical context. Genesis 8:11. Then the dove came to him in the evening, and behold, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in her mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. So he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, which did not return again to him any more. Noah sent 2 different birds out to see if the waters had receded. Once again, God does things on his time and not our time. So the waters from that flood, which was global, had receded slowly. When it stopped raining, the earth dried up slowly. Just like the ground does whenever you get a few days of rain nowadays. It takes a little while, it takes a few days for the grass to dry up. Verses 13 through 19. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and indeed the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dried. So it took another whole month after the flood ended for the earth to dry, because it rained for a whole month. Then God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every animal, every creeping thing, every bird, and whatever creeps on the earth, according to their families, went out of the ark. So once again, God used all those animals and Noah and his family to replenish the earth after the flood. Finishing out the chapter in verses 20 through 22, Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. Once again, God speaks of the heart of man, which is depraved from the beginning, purely evil. But God promised in his own word that he would not destroy the earth for man's sake in that same way again. He meant that he would not destroy the earth by water again. Next time will be by fire. Then we get into chapter 9. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, and on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and on all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. God promised all the clean animals to Noah and to his family for food. Notice the foreshadowing here in the context of the burnt offerings. Noah offered up clean animals as burnt offerings to God, which later on would be prescribed to the Jews in the law. In Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Once again, we go verse by verse from Genesis to Deuteronomy, because if you don't understand Genesis, you won't understand Exodus. If you don't understand Exodus, then you won't understand anything in Leviticus. If you don't understand Leviticus, then you won't understand anything in Numbers or Deuteronomy, because it all goes together as the law of God. And if you don't understand the law of God, then you won't understand anything that the prophets have to say. You'll get a completely different application than the true application if you don't understand what the prophets are actually saying. Because every prophecy is either pointing the Jews back to the law of God for obedience, or prophesying salvation and deliverance and restoration, or is prophesying the exile of the Jews. Let's get back into verse 3 in Genesis chapter 9. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. For the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. God created man with his own voice. He spoke man into existence and made him from the dust of the ground and created him just as he imagined him. He spoke the whole world into existence. That is an attribute that only God himself possesses, the ability and the power and the authority to speak things into existence. Verse 7, and as for you, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. Thus I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God promised that he would never flood the earth to destroy it again by water. But he does use the rain to water the crops in the fields, to keep the grass growing. You gotta remember the background here. Agriculture, farming, gardening was the primary source of earning a living. Verse 12, and God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. The rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. God made that rainbow and set it in the sky as a promise never to destroy all human flesh by a flood again. It is the corrupt imagination of mortal man that believes that the rainbow is a sign of pride. It is man's own depravity that has turned the promise of God into a lie made up by the human imagination. Let's finish out the chapter, verses 18 to 28. Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. You have here the first example of drunkenness, which once again, the very nature of man is pure evil. Verse 22, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. Ham looked and saw his father naked, and basically invaded his privacy, which could be seen as a homosexual act. And then he went and told his two brothers, who were Shem and Japheth, and they showed more humility, and they looked the other way and took a garment on each of their shoulders and walked backwards to cover up their father. That was basically their way of saying, problem solved. But there was another problem that had to be solved, and that was the sin of Ham for looking on their father's nakedness and going and telling his brothers. It could have been lust that drove Ham to go and tell Shem and Japheth. It could have been his own depraved mind, which we can gather from the context that it most likely was Ham's own depraved mind that made him look upon his own father and then go and tell his own brothers. Verses 24 through 28. So Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servants. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So we see here, once again, sin taking a slow effect and shortening the life of each generation. But we also see that because of Ham's disobedience and sin, that Noah had cursed Ham's child, which was Canaan. A whole nation was cursed and caused to be a servant of his brother Shem, because we can get from the context that Shem did what was right in the eyes of God. And then he caused Japheth to be in fellowship with Shem. Now we also know that there was the faithful son and the prodigal son, which Jesus spoke of as a parable in the first coming. The prodigal son was the one that squandered all his inheritance, fulfilling his own depravity and lust. There was the faithful son who looked down on him. But that parable also speaks of the grace of God. When the prodigal son returns home and he's finally back into his right mind, and the father looks on him with mercy and celebrates his return. So God and his angels celebrate the return of any sinner that repents and turns back to him. That's just a side note, but still, to all glory be to God for allowing us that opportunity to repent and turn to him. And that's about all we've got for this lesson. So once again, if you get anything out of the lessons, give the video a thumbs up, share on your social media account, and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, may God bless you as you study His Word. Y'all have a good day.